After an incident, it is common for teams to say we need to improve the process, but that phrase can be so broad that it becomes meaningless. Process improvement that actually works is specific, evidence-driven, and focused on the points where work got harder than it needed to be. For brand new learners, it helps to recognize that incident management is a system made of people, decisions, information flow, and technical actions, and any weak point in that system can slow response or increase harm. Improving the process is not about adding more rules or more meetings, because extra process can create friction without improving outcomes. The real goal is to reduce friction where it blocks good work, increase speed where time reduces damage, and raise quality where mistakes create long-term risk. This episode is about building a mindset for improvement that is practical rather than theoretical, so that the next incident is handled with more control and less chaos. When you improve the process well, you do not just respond faster, you respond better, with fewer errors, clearer communication, and stronger learning. A good improvement effort begins with evidence from the incident, not with opinions about what should have happened. Teams often remember incidents emotionally, and those emotions can distort what they think the biggest problems were. The safer approach is to use the incident record, including timelines, decisions, communications, and observed gaps, to identify where work slowed down or where confusion increased risk. For example, if containment was delayed because approvals were unclear, that is a process gap. If response teams wasted time arguing about terminology, that is a communication gap. If responders could not get logs quickly, that is an operational readiness gap. If stakeholders demanded updates from multiple people, that is a governance and messaging gap. Evidence helps you avoid the trap of fixing the most annoying problem instead of the most impactful one. It also makes improvement easier to defend to leaders, because you can connect the change directly to a specific failure mode and to a specific outcome you want to improve next time. Reducing friction means removing obstacles that cause delays or cause responders to work around the process in unsafe ways. One of the most common friction points is unclear roles, where people do not know who is responsible for decisions, communication, and coordination. In a crisis, uncertainty about roles creates duplicated work, conflicting instructions, and missed actions. Another friction point is access to information, such as not having the right contacts, not knowing where incident records are stored, or not having reliable communication channels when normal channels may be compromised. A third friction point is decision bottlenecks, where a critical action requires an approval chain that is too slow for incident conditions. A fourth friction point is tool sprawl, where data is scattered across multiple systems and responders waste time stitching together a picture. Reducing friction is not glamorous, but it is often the highest return improvement because it directly translates into faster containment and clearer recovery. For beginners, the key is to notice that friction shows up as waiting, searching, repeating, and arguing, and those patterns are signals to investigate. Increasing speed is not about rushing. It is about making the right actions happen sooner by improving readiness and decision flow. Speed matters most early, when faster detection and faster containment can prevent broader damage. Process improvements that increase speed often include clearer escalation triggers, better on-call or contact paths, and predefined decision authority for time-sensitive actions. Speed also comes from reducing cognitive load, meaning responders do not have to invent a plan from scratch each time. That can be supported by having well-understood play patterns, like how to run a briefing, how to create a controlled update cadence, and how to set safe communication boundaries. Speed also depends on rehearsed coordination, because people move faster when they know how to work together. A beginner might think speed comes from better tools alone, but tools only help when the process is clear enough to use them effectively. The goal is to make speed a property of the system, not a property of individual heroics. Raising quality means reducing the likelihood of mistakes that create secondary damage, such as leaking sensitive incident data, making unverified claims, or restoring services before trust is validated. Quality also includes the quality of documentation, because poor documentation turns an incident into a confusing story instead of a learning artifact. A process can be fast and still low quality if it moves quickly in the wrong direction or if it leaves hidden risks behind. Quality improvements often include better evidence handling habits, clearer criteria for recovery and closure, and stronger communication discipline that separates confirmed facts from hypotheses. Quality also includes decision quality, meaning decisions are made with appropriate context and recorded rationale. Leaders often care about quality because quality reduces long-term cost, even if it sometimes adds a small amount of short-term effort. For beginners, it helps to see quality as reliability, meaning the process produces consistent, defensible outcomes, not just quick outcomes. A high-quality process is one where the organization can explain what it did and why, and where future incidents become less damaging. One of the most effective ways to improve process is to focus on handoffs, because handoffs are where information is lost and where confusion spreads. Handoffs happen when an incident is escalated from monitoring to response, when technical findings are translated for leadership, when response shifts from containment to recovery, and when the incident transitions to closure and follow-up. In each handoff, the risk is that critical details are dropped or that the meaning changes because different people use different terminology. Improving handoffs can involve standardizing what information must be passed, like current status, confirmed impact, key risks, current actions, and next decisions. It can also involve ensuring that the same shared summary is used across roles so the story stays consistent. Better handoffs reduce rework because teams do not have to reconstruct context repeatedly. They also increase speed because decisions can be made faster when the information arrives in a usable form. For beginners, noticing where handoffs felt messy is one of the quickest ways to find improvement opportunities. Communication improvements often deliver big gains because communication is the nervous system of incident management. If updates are inconsistent, stakeholders will interrupt responders constantly, which slows technical work and increases stress. If terminology drifts, teams may chase different priorities based on different interpretations. If communications are too detailed, sensitive information may leak. And if communications are too vague, leaders may make poor decisions. A practical improvement is to establish a stable briefing and update pattern that includes the same key elements each time, such as impact, actions, decisions, and next update timing. Another improvement is to define a small set of terms and phrases that the team uses consistently, especially for uncertainty and for incident status. Another is to clarify who owns messaging, which reduces conflicting statements. Communication improvements can reduce friction, increase speed, and raise quality at the same time, which is why they are so powerful. For beginners, it is useful to remember that communication is not separate from response. It is part of response performance. Improving the process also requires attention to evidence flow, because evidence is what turns uncertainty into confidence. If responders cannot access logs, alerts, and system information quickly, they will either waste time or make risky guesses. Evidence flow depends on operational readiness, such as whether monitoring coverage exists, whether data is retained, and whether access permissions allow responders to retrieve what they need. It also depends on organization, such as whether there is a known place to store incident artifacts and whether evidence handling is controlled. Improvements in evidence flow can include making sure key systems have reliable logging, ensuring time synchronization, and ensuring responders have a clear path to access data during emergencies. For beginners, the main point is that process improvement is not only about meetings and roles. It is also about the ability to observe and prove. Better evidence flow increases speed because it reduces investigation time and increases quality because it reduces guessing. Decision-making improvements are another major category because incidents are a series of decisions under uncertainty. Common decision pain points include unclear authority, slow approvals, and lack of documented rationale. Improving decision-making can involve defining which decisions can be made quickly by responders and which decisions require leadership involvement. It can also involve creating decision triggers, where certain conditions automatically prompt a leadership briefing or a specific response action. Another improvement is to document the decision rationale during the incident, not weeks later, because memory fades and hindsight distorts. This documentation helps future teams understand why choices were made and helps leaders trust that the process is controlled. For beginners, it helps to remember that decision-making is a skill that can be improved, not a mysterious talent. When decision-making improves, speed increases without sacrificing quality, because actions are taken deliberately rather than reactively. Follow-up management is often where process improvement efforts fail because the incident ends and normal work returns and improvement tasks lose urgency. A process that improves reliably needs a way to carry corrective actions forward after closure with ownership, tracking, and review. This does not require complex tooling, but it does require clarity about what changes will be made, who is responsible, and what completion looks like. A useful improvement is to define a short set of high-priority corrective actions that must be addressed quickly, while scheduling longer-term improvements separately so they do not block closure. Another improvement is to create a predictable review point, like a post-incident check-in, to confirm progress. Leaders often care about this because it is the difference between learning and forgetting. For beginners, this is a reminder that process improvement is not only about identifying issues. It is about making sure changes actually happen. A process that does not deliver follow-through will repeat the same incidents even if the team is smart and hardworking. It is also important to avoid a common trap in process improvement, adding friction in the name of quality. Sometimes organizations react to an incident by adding approval layers, adding documentation requirements, or adding complex reporting steps that slow response next time. Those additions may feel safer, but they can reduce speed and increase confusion, especially under stress. A better approach is to design improvements that make the right behavior easier, not harder. For example, instead of requiring more forms, you might simplify where documentation is stored and define what must be captured. Instead of requiring more approvals, you might define emergency authority with clear boundaries and later review. Instead of adding more meetings, you might define a brief, consistent update rhythm that reduces interruptions. Good process improvement respects that incidents are time-sensitive and stressful, so the process should be lightweight but controlled. For beginners, the key is to treat process as a support structure, not as a barrier. Measuring whether your improvements worked is the final piece that turns intentions into outcomes. You do not need a huge metric system, but you do need some way to confirm that friction decreased, speed increased, or quality improved. For example, you might look at whether detection or containment time improved, whether updates became more consistent, whether incident reports became more complete, or whether corrective actions were completed more reliably. You can also look for qualitative signals, like fewer repeated questions from stakeholders or fewer contradictory messages during an incident. The point is to treat improvement like an experiment, where you make a change and then observe whether the system behaves differently. This approach reduces the risk of doing busy work improvements that feel good but do not change outcomes. For beginners, it is helpful to see that improvement is iterative. You do not fix everything in one incident. You choose the highest leverage changes and build momentum. To wrap up, improving the incident management process means focusing on the places where the system made good work unnecessarily hard, and then making targeted changes that reduce friction, increase speed, and raise quality. Evidence from the incident helps you choose improvements that matter, handoff improvements protect meaning, communication improvements stabilize decision-making, and evidence flow improvements reduce guessing. Decision improvements make action more deliberate and faster, while follow-up improvements ensure learning turns into lasting change. The best improvements make the right actions easier and the wrong actions harder, without adding heavy bureaucracy that slows response. Over time, these changes shift incident management from a frantic scramble into a controlled practice where responders, leaders, and stakeholders know what to expect. That predictability is a form of resilience because it reduces panic and supports better decisions under stress. If you can learn to approach process improvement with specificity, discipline, and attention to real friction points, you will help your organization respond not only faster, but smarter, and you will turn each incident into measurable progress rather than repeated pain.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.